Daily Tech News Show is made possible by you, the listeners. Thanks to all of you, including Pat, Mike Cortez, Erwin Sturr, and everyone thank our new patrons, Carson and Mark. Woo-hoo. Thanks for joining us.
Yay.
Welcome. On this episode of DTNS, Apple and Meta fight over interoperability in the EU. Tesla looks to the Lone Star State for its Robotaxi service. And what happens when you blame ChatGPT for hallucinating, but you didn't really actually use it? Justin Robert Young has thoughts. This is the Daily Tech News for Thursday, December 19th, 2024. From Studio Animal House, I am Sarah Lane.
From Columbus, Ohio, I'm Robb Dunewood.
From deep in the heart of Texas, I'm Justin Robert Young.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
Well, we've all assembled here to bring you lots of tech news. We've got it all. We've got big tech fighting in the EU. We've got robotaxis taking over. We've got a Woodrow Wilson mystery. It's not something that I can say often on the show. But first, let's start with the quick hits. The global wrist-worn device market saw a slight decline of 1% in 2024, largely due to market saturation in regions like India and the US. But China drove growth with a 20.1% increase in the region, with smartwatches overall in a global dip of 3.8%, but China's shipments rising 23.3%. Huawei led the pack. Apple continued to get competition from Xiaomi and Samsung, and BBK held onto its dominance in China's kids' watch market.
Sony increased its stake in Kadokawa Corporation to 10% with a $300 million investment, becoming Kadokawa's largest shareholder. This follows speculation about a potential outright acquisition, which would have given Sony control over Kadokawa's holdings in movies, TV, publishing, and video games, including Elden Ring developer From Software. Sony and Kadokawa say they plan to collaborate on adapting and developing Kadokawa IP.
Microsoft will expand live translation capabilities to Intel and AMD-based Copilot Plus PCs. Windows 11 insiders in the Dev channel get real-time English subtitles for audio content in over 44 languages. First available on Qualcomm-powered devices, this feature works with multiple audio sources like YouTube videos, live video conferences, and general recordings. You just play the audio on your Copilot Plus PC, and Windows 11 automatically generates English captions in real time.
Google unveiled Gemini 2.0 Flash Thinking Experimental, a reasoning AI model made for complex problem solving in programming, math, and physics, available as part of AI Studio platform. It's built on Gemini 2.0 Flash and uses thoughts to enhance reasoning and fact checks itself.
Reuters reports that Apple is in talks with Tencent and ByteDance to integrate their artificial intelligence models into iPhones in China. Apple rolled out OpenAI's ChatGPT integration with Siri earlier this month, but ChatGPT isn't available in China, which has Apple looking for local partners for those AI features while it tries to get back market share in the country at the same time. The information reported earlier this month that Apple and Baidu have also been in talks, but the discussions reportedly face setbacks due to technical issues, including disputes over using iPhone user data to train those AI models. Yeah, Apple really doesn't want other companies to use its data, does it? Apple and Meta are in a dispute over interoperability requests mandated by the European Union's Digital Markets Act, or the DMA. The DMA requires major tech companies, that would be Apple and Meta, among others, to allow rivals and app developers to interoperate with their services to promote fair competition. Meta has submitted 15 of those requests to Apple. Apple actually reported this today, wanting better access to Apple's technology stack. Apple argues granting such access would compromise user privacy and security, potentially let Meta access really sensitive user information, messages, emails, app usage data, and so on and so forth. Meta also accuses Apple of using privacy concerns as an excuse for anti-competitive behavior, adding that Apple's resistance to interoperability limits consumer choice. They're both obviously going to say these things. The European Commission is currently evaluating these requirements and has published preliminary findings. Stakeholders have until January 9th, 2025 to provide feedback. These are developers who, have some skin in this game, with final measures expected by March of next year, 2025. Non-compliance, if Apple is found to be non-compliant, could result in the company facing fines of up to 10% of its global annual revenue, which, if it's Apple, is a lot of money. Justin, this is Meta and Apple, two very different companies when it comes to data collection. Who do you side with?
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily who you side with in this particular situation, because obviously it's a mediated struggle with the European Union that allows these companies to make these requests of each other. That being said, Apple will allow access to its technology at great cost and effort. If you want access to their tech stack, if you want them to make a decision that they do not want to make, they will make you go through every avenue legally to do it, at which point they will only comply if they absolutely are forced to. And this has been very, very specifically their playbook when it comes to the European Union. Now, the Meta versus Apple element of this is obviously the juiciest part of it, but without having the full understanding of exactly what Meta wants to do with it, it remains kind of a he said.
Sarah, you kind of alluded to this when you were doing the read. This is exactly what we expect Apple to do, and this is exactly what we expect Meta to do. Apple is a really, really big company that makes a really, really popular smartphone, and it is completely locked down. And the government in the European Union is saying, you need to open this up a little bit. So Meta, being another really, really big company that just doesn't happen to make their own phone, but says, Apple, you make really good phones. We want access to your stack so we can make our stuff work better on your stuff. Well, of course, that's what they're going to do if the law says they can do it. And then also, Apple's going to say, no, we can't do that because it's going to make us less secure. I don't think that you didn't need a crystal ball. You didn't need to think deeply about this. This is exactly what I expect Apple to do. This is exactly what I expect Meta to do. And I imagine that this is going to be wrapped up in court for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, Apple said specifically when it pushed back on Meta's interoperability requests, quote, if Apple were to have to grant all of these requests, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp could enable Meta to read on a user's device all of their messages and emails, see every phone call they make or receive, track every app that they use, scan all of their photos, look at all of their files and calendar events, log all of their passwords, and more. So listen, in a worst case scenario, that is definitely something that a lot of people are like, well, that's a bad idea. Make sure Meta doesn't do this, Apple. At the same time, Meta is saying, well, that's not really what we're doing. We're trying to make you, Apple, be less anti-competitive.
And the last time that then Facebook and Apple got into a fight like this, it was when Apple did its ask not to track and Facebook threw an absolute fit because being allowed to track its users across other apps with a already on version of the app, so you'd have to go deep into the settings to turn it off, allowed them to help advertisers target data a lot better. So for you, the consumer, this is an alien versus predator situation. You have two companies that very much have their own way of looking at the world. If you are not a fan or do not trust Apple, then certainly you have no more reason to do that here. And similarly with Meta. Meta, again, is an ad sales company. No matter what else they do, the way they make money is by selling your data to advertisers so advertisers can sell you a awesome gift for the holidays.
They did try that Facebook phone back in the day. Remember the Facebook phone? I never had one.
It was horrible.
Yeah,
it was truly. I mean, it was a phone and it you could make phone calls on it, but compared to what Android was doing and what Apple was doing, it wasn't.
Well, you either have to go all in on that or just skin an Android phone or, just do, your own.
Yeah, I am interested I should say, I find it interesting that Apple's mode of operandi is that they asked us for all of our source code and want to send it to them unencrypted through SMS and MMS, because that's everybody's going to get access to it, and then you can just break everything that we have. And that's not what Meta is doing. But as I said earlier, I fully expect that this is how Apple will react to this. So Tesla's looking at a bunch of cities in Texas, including Austin, to try out their long-awaited Robotaxi service. Apparently, someone from Tesla's been talking to the city in Austin since May. They even had a meeting this month to teach first responders how to deal with Tesla's self-driving cars. The Tesla person said Austin's definitely on the radar, but they haven't picked a spot yet because they have a lot of choices. So Justin, I know you live in Austin, so I just was thinking, are you excited to see this come? Is this something you're going to sign up for soon? If Austin happens to be the first city, is this something you're looking forward to?
Oh, I'll definitely sign up for it. I wanted to sign up for Waymo, and then Waymo wound up cutting a deal with Uber. So now it'll just be every once in a while a Waymo will show up instead of an Uber if they ever expand it down to where I am, which is just south of the initial Waymo area. But certainly, I believe in self-driving cars, and I believe that they could more cheaply and effectively get me from point A to point B if I needed to get a ride in the times that I do desperately need it. The question is exactly where. Now, look, Tesla has a relationship with Austin. There's no doubt about it. They've got several Tesla stores here. They're just building a brand new showroom on the Wyatt Oak Hill for Texas, Central Texas locals. And Elon Musk has headquartered a few of his companies here since he decamped from Los Angeles. It makes the most sense that it would be in Austin. That being said, if it were not to be in Austin, one of the things that you do have to remember is that the dichotomy of this city is that A, it's the capital of Texas, which is super majority Republican controlled, but the city itself is the most liberal city in Texas. So if the very much partisan now Elon Musk post-election does not get everything that he wants, it may well be because there is a democratically controlled city council here, and now he is not just an entrepreneur asking for technocratic things. He is somebody that is very much on the field, as it were, in terms of politics.
I wonder when self-driving cars, and we're still in the early days. A lot of people don't have access to them at all. I have a lot of access to Waymo cars here where I am in my part of LA, and they're all over the place. I mean, truly, it's like every third car now. It's kind of crazy. Maybe it's just my neighborhood. I'm not sure. But I wonder how much the experience of the Robotaxi will matter. I remember when Uber in its infancy launched in San Francisco. It was called Uber Taxi at the time, and had to change its name to Uber, which a lot of people don't even remember, but that's what it was called. And it was a novel thing. Then you got Lyft. And so it was like, oh, okay, you have some options. And they went back and forth on pricing. That was that was kind of the only reason that you would choose one over the other. Or maybe just, I don't know, you had better access with Uber where, it would get to your house and
vibes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I had a variety of friends who, I don't know, for whatever reason, driving for Uber was more problematic than driving for Lyft, kind of in their off hours just to make a few bucks type thing. So that was you had this sort of war of the you don't have your own car. How are you going to get somewhere besides using public transportation or traditional taxi? And the Robotaxi stuff, the Waymo experience, I've really only been in a Waymo like 10 times total, but it's very seamless, works really well. You feel safe. I mean, maybe some people wouldn't, but I do. It's like, how do they compete? I guess it just turns into a price thing again. Once you're both in the same market.
Yeah, I think that it would be based off of price. I mean, you're talking about autonomous vehicles. There's no one in the car, so you're not going to have like that customer service of talking back and forth with someone.
Right,
there's the car working and doing what's supposed to do. That's going to be a big thing. But I think ultimately, if these things get to where they are, we're using them just as much as we use Uber and Lyft today, it'll be because the technology works. So I think the competition ultimately is just going to try to keep the prices low. I don't know where else you're going to be.
It would be fleet investment too, right? It would be, because ultimately the customer experience is, I hit a button. How fast from when I hit that button can I get to where I want to go versus if I had a car magically and I drove it myself right now? And the reason why Uber works better in larger cities is because there's simply more cars. There's more people that are out there driving Uber at that very moment. If you have a larger fleet investment in a certain city for Waymo or Tesla, then you are going to have a faster ride from here to there. So that would be probably the biggest thing, is that once you have the ability to do it, how many cars are you putting on the street? How much does that cost versus how much you are going to be able to run people hither and yon?
That is a good point. The rating system, again, in the early days, extremely important. I remember once, I had like a 4.6 or something, and I was like, what did I do? I just sat there in the back seat, because you rate the driver and they rate you. And, it goes both ways. Like, drivers could be like, sounds like a problematic person. I'm not going to pick her up. I'm just going to let somebody else do it. When it comes to autonomous vehicles, you're not really arguing with anyone as long as they just do their thing. So you're still going to get folks saying, well, here's why I like this car. It has a nicer screen, or, it smelled better, or, whatever. But it's sort of a different era all around.
Yeah. All that matters at the end of the day for all of it is, how fast did I get there? How cheap did I get there for?
Right. Yeah. Did we get in an accident? No? Cool.
Awesome.
If you have a thought about autonomous vehicles or anything that we talk about on the show and you want to let us know, well, email works really well. Email us at feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. During a discussion of presidential pardons for family members on the TV show The View, panelist Anna Navarro claimed that President Woodrow Wilson once pardoned his brother-in-law, Hunter deButts. This did not appear to have ever happened, but you would be forgiven for just believing her because she said, well, ChatGPT told me. After being criticized for the error by some, Navarro claimed, yeah, I used ChatGPT, it got some misinformation, and shared a screenshot of the fact that this is what happened. Wasn't her fault, ChatGPT's fault. But the screenshot she shared showed proof that maybe it wasn't as ChatGPT as she said. And Justin, I know you immediately got a spidey sense of something being a little amiss here. So walk us through it.
I know that all of the forebearers that created and run the SI Newhouse School for Public Communications, one of the best journalism schools in America at Syracuse University, hang their head in shame knowing that I took the training that they gave me and I have dusted off these investigative fingers only so I could run down who indeed was Hunter Butts and where did he come from. Quick correction to the setup here. She did not, Anna Navarro, say this on The View. She is a View panelist, but this was on her personal Twitter account.
Right.
And it went a little something like this. Hunter deButts was pardoned by his brother-in-law, Woodrow Wilson, back at the early part of the 20th century. That did not happen. Hunter deButts did not exist, despite having a hilariously funny name that seems to be some kind of hallucination. However, either me or my friend Andrew Main, my co-host on The Attention Mechanism and former prompt engineer, the first prompt engineer for OpenAI, we were not able to replicate that hallucination. And that is one thing about LLMs, is that you are usually able to, using the exact same prompt, have something along the lines of the same hallucination. Hunter deButts not to be found. The other problem with Anna Navarro's screen grab was that it looked like it was an old user interface for ChatGPT. So how is that happening at the time that she put this out, which was December 3rd? So I went down the rabbit hole. I tried, Andrew and I tried to figure this out. He tried a bunch of different LLMs. We're not able to recreate it. I tried a bunch of different knockoff ChatGPT services, like the things that when you search in the iOS store for ChatGPT, the stuff that is not the official app that are dominating that top 10.
It's called like Chat LM or whatever.
Exactly. Looks a lot like it. They all use subscriptions, by the way. Please, nobody. I mean, you guys are DTNS listeners, so you know. Nobody ever used these. ChatGPT is free. It's fine. Could not replicate it and couldn't find the same UI. So I talked about it on the Politics show, and I asked the listeners, hey, if you can replicate this, please let me know. And sure enough, there was one listener who was able to do it, and indeed had the same user interface that Anna Navarro had. Now, let me roll that back a second. He was not able to recreate Hunter deButts. He did have the same UI, so at least we proved that that was replicatable with the official ChatGPT app. But the links that he got for the other two answers when he asked whether or not there have been presidential pardons offered to family members were from a website that was a bunch of listicles. When I looked for the author of the article that was served, it was very clearly an AI picture. I then investigated who ran that listicle site, and it's an ad tech company that says we are providing the future of AI, or the future of advertising in a post-cookie world using generative AI. The last time that article was edited was the same day as the Anna Navarro tweet. So my supposition, and this is a little bit of reaching, is that Anna Navarro was fed that exact screen grab the way she showed it. And the reason why was because this chum listicle AI site invented Hunter deButts. So yes, it was likely.
So Hunter deButts is not like on a byline from the site in any way.
No, okay. But it was edited that same day. And so my thought is that they saw a lot of inbound traffic because they were the website on the internet that had Hunter deButts on it. They then edited it because they wanted to stay in the good graces of whatever the mojo is that's getting them surfaced in generative AI searches, which means, by the way, that SEO, that there are people who are rightly probably trying to crack AI search SEO, which is probably the tech story here. That there's a whole new world there, and exactly how ChatGPT responds to that is going to be up to ChatGPT. There is a little bit of a bonus add-on to this, is that when I put out that episode where I revealed all that information, I was contacted by Anna Navarro of The View. She slid into my DMs and she clicked on the links that
X?
she was served. Yeah, she clicked on the link that she was served in that initial search, and she says that it took her to Wikipedia and Britannica. So it didn't take her to the site that I was thinking it was going to take her. And so the mystery of Hunter deButts remains. Where did you come from? Where did you go? Hunter deButts.
Oh, Hunter deButts. Well, okay, so it's odd that the one person that got a hold of you on PX3 said, I can replicate that screen that she sees. But you couldn't, and Andrew couldn't.
Well, no, except for Hunter deButts. So really the key with the listener was not that he was able to recreate it in the answer, but it was just the UI of that, which I thought was impossible to replicate, was possible to replicate. And he was not doing anything fancy. He just had ChatGPT. He paid for it for a little bit. He had let it lapse. So I don't know whether or not that's part of the reason why the UI was what it was. But I thought that was impossible. It was not impossible. Somebody was able to do that. So now you can slide away the idea that this was maybe recreated on some site or photoshopped or whatever, right? What still remains, nobody has been able to recreate the answer. of Hunter deButts. They're not able to recreate that hallucination, which is fascinating.
When Anna Navarro got a hold of you, did she seem like, let's get to the bottom of this together? Was she like, too many people have been DMing me about this. Who are you? That kind of thing.
I will say that I'm very, very grateful to Anna Navarro because she made a mistake and she was publicly shamed for it, and yet she had enough sense of humor to DM me and not yell at me, because not everybody who makes a public internet faux pas has that kind of patience. And so I didn't want to push her too much, because I think she was being very, very kind, but she obviously had some mixed feelings about it. she was flabbergasted that anyone would think that she would make up the name Hunter deButts.
Right. So if I'm following everything, it does not look like she made this up, which is what a lot of people were initially saying. It's like, oh, you're just out here lying. That doesn't appear to be the case. It looks like she actually did search this and just got fed some fake news that she repeated on Twitter. Is that a fair estimation of what happened?
Yes. I think that is by far the most likely outcome. Now, without being able to recreate anything, there's no way to know for sure, but I have no reason to believe that she photoshopped it. The question was whether or not ChatGPT hallucinated it, or it went out to the web and just got bad information. And that, in the world of ChatGPT search, is actually a really important designation. And that's why I think the Verge article that we linked here is really bad. That's a bad article, and the person who wrote it should feel bad about it.
You know what? Yeah, the whole who is Hunter deButts doesn't seem to be a real person. I have had ChatGPT and other LLMs, but ChatGPT is the one that I try to throw spaghetti at the wall sometimes and just see what happens. And it will hallucinate in ways where I'm like, okay, I think I kind of get why you did that. You know, you got a little confused because maybe I fed you, a URL rather than just text of an article, because that will always throw it off, because you get all the other like weird stuff that would be on a website that turns strange when it turns into text. But just create Woodrow Wilson's brother-in-law, who apparently ended up in exile in Cuba. I mean, there was a whole story about Hunter deButts, and just was not just never happened.
Yeah, I made up a story that I told when I was doing the story, and it did involve him ending up in Cuba. So, this is the kind of new frontier, though, and ultimately, if you only think of AI as just like, take out the idea that you can ask it anything and it will confidently answer. That's one part of generative AI. The other part is, can it be a viable search engine? Can it do better than spiders crawling the internet to find things that would otherwise be found in what we understand as a traditional Google search? There's a lot of money. There's billions and billions of dollars riding on whether or not it can be that. And that's what I found fascinating about this, especially if my initial conclusion is true, and that there are companies right now that are trying to figure out what the new field of SEO is, something that reached really full maturity with our modern search system, which I think has out and out degraded the experience.
I'll just say this. It's got to be cool for PX3 that if you search for Hunter deButts, it comes up on the first page for a non-existent person, for a non-existent thing that has actually never happened.
I'll tell you what, we are, we seek to be number one in Hunter deButts news, not number two.
Yeah. Well, Justin Robert Young, we want to thank you for participating with us this week on Daily Tech News Show. Can you tell the folks where they can find you, what you've got going on?
Well, I mentioned my podcast, my AI podcast, The Attention Mechanism. I probably should have mentioned it more often here on this show, but Andrew Main, who, again, is the first prompt engineer for OpenAI, joins me each and every week, and we discuss the latest in AI. There are a few minds that I trust more, not only because he's been my friend forever, but also because he has been in the belly of the beast and remains on the frontier of not just the OpenAI models, but Google's models, Anthropic's models, and a lot of the open source ones. We do our best to try to make it clear for you guys. And so if you are interested in a dedicated AI podcast from somebody who has been in the belly of the beast, then check us out, The Intention Mechanism.
Excellent. Patrons, stick around for our extended show, Good Day Internet. Instagram is going to be getting a lot more generative AI videos sooner than later. You might like it, you might not. We'll talk about the good, the bad, and the puppets.
You can also catch the show live Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 2100 UTC. Find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. We'll be back tomorrow with Shannon Morse and Lynn Peralta. See you folks tomorrow.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.